All right, we're back. So in this section, or in this video for this section, we're going to talk about how to solve equations using multiplication or division. So in the equation x over 3 equals 9, the variable x, you could think of it as being x divided by 3. So to solve for x, you have to undo the division. Well, when you think of undoing a mathematical operation, you want to do what's called the inverse operation, or the opposite type of operation. Well, what's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So you undo the dividing by 3 by multiplying each side by 3. And that is an example of the multiplication property of equality. And this is just like the other properties of equality. If you multiply both sides by a number, then you produce an equivalent equation. The equation is still true. Okay? So, same thing is true about division. If you divide both sides of an equation by the same number or the same thing, you produce an equivalent equation. And that's one of the steps you're allowed to do to solve an equation. All right. Now, the reciprocal of a number can be used to solve equations. Now, be careful. The reciprocal is making the number a fraction, if it's not already a fraction, and then flipping it over. It's not changing the sign. Okay, the reciprocal is simply flipping the number over. So if I had 4/7, the reciprocal would be 7/4. If I had just 7, I'd write it as 7 over 1, and the reciprocal would be 1 over 7. If I had negative 16/17, the reciprocal would be negative 17/16. You just flip it over. At no point am I changing the sign of the number. Okay, whether it's positive or negative is irrelevant. You just flip the number over to take the reciprocal. Okay, so let's solve these equations. I have 2/3 q equals a half. Now, to get rid of a fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/2, because what happens is the 3's and the 2's cross cancel, leaving just q. Now remember, when you multiply fractions, you just multiply straight across. So this would be 3 over 4. So q equals 3/4. Okay? And if you can do some cross reducing before you multiply, that's okay, but in this one, you can't. So we did it. 39 equals negative 3r. Now, since it's negative 3 times r, I want to get rid of the negative 3. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. These cancel. Now, 39 divided by negative 3 is going to be negative 13. Remember, when you divide a positive by a negative, you get a negative. When you divide a negative by a positive, you get a negative. But if you divide positive by a positive, you get a positive. And if you divide a negative by a negative, you get a positive. Okay, so basically for multiplication and division, it goes like this. If you have a negative times a negative, you get a positive. And if you have a positive times a positive, you get a positive. But if you have a negative times a positive, you get a negative. Or if you have a positive times a negative, you get a negative. All right, so it's different than the rules for addition and subtraction. Basically, with multiplication and division, if you multiply or divide numbers with the same sign, the answer is going to be positive. And if you multiply or divide numbers with a different sign, the answer is going to be negative. That is not the same thing as the rules for addition that I just taught you in the previous video. All right, here's a couple for you to try. Go ahead and pause the video and hit play when you're ready. All right, we're back. So this one, I'm going to multiply both sides by 5/3. So 5/3 times 3/5 k equals 6 times 5/3. Okay, these cross cancel and you get k. I would put the 6 over 1 and cross reduce the 6 and the 3, because they both contain a factor of 3, so you could cross reduce that to a 2 and a 1. And then you'd multiply straight across the top and bottom. So 2 times 5 is 10, 1 times 1 is 1, and 10 over 1 is just 10. Okay? All right. Now for the second one, you multiply both sides by 2/3, 3/2 to get rid of this fraction. So 3/2 here times 3/2 here. These cross cancel and you just have b. Now you can't cross reduce anything here, so you just multiply straight across. So you'd have -3 over 8. And that is your answer. Alrighty? All right. Looking pretty good. So we can also use reciprocals and properties of equality to solve real world problems. So for example, of a group of 13 to 15-year-old girls surveyed, 225, or about 9/20 said they talk on the telephone while they watch television. About how many girls were surveyed? Well, we got to think about this, because all they told us technically is the number of girls that said they like to talk on the television while they talk on the telephone while they watch television, right? But they also told us the proportion of the girls. So if G is the number of girls that is surveyed, okay, it says 9/20 said they talked on the phone while watching television. So it's 9/20 of the girls surveyed turns out to be 225. So that's how we made our equation. 9/20 of the girls is 225. All right. So then we could just solve that equation, multiply both sides by 20/9, and you get 4,500 over 9, which is 500. Okay. All right. So about 500 girls were surveyed. So when you report your answer on this one, it's involved in a context. What does the number mean? Well, 500 is the number of girls that were surveyed. So you have to include that in your answer. All right, here's one for you to try. Go ahead and read through the problem, set up your equation, solve it, and then hit play when you're ready to check your answer. All right, we're back. So stained glass. Allison is making a stained glass window. Her pattern requires that 1/5 of the glass should be blue. She has 288 square inches of blue glass. If she intends to use all of her blue glass, how much glass will she need for the entire project? So she wants to use up all the blue glass. So 1/5 of her blue glass, excuse me, I said that wrong. She wants to use all of her blue glass for the project, and we're trying to figure out how much glass will she need for the entire project. So she might have other colors, but we know that 1/5 of the glass should be blue. So 1/5 of the glass should be blue. Now she wants to make sure that she uses 288 square inches, then 1/5 of however much she uses should come out to 288. So multiply both sides by 5 over 1. These cross reduce. And 288 over 1 would give you 540, or excuse me, 1,440 square inches. Okay? Alrighty. All right, guys, that's it for this section. Please continue on to your assignment. And as always, if you have any questions, reach out to me, and I'd definitely like to help you out and assist you. And you make it a great day. Take care.